Dancing in the dark with you between my arms, barefoot on the grass, listening to our favorite song. When you said you loved to dance, I whispered underneath my breath, but you heard it, darling. You look perfect tonight. Well, I found a woman stronger than anyone I know. She shares my dreams. I hope that someday I'll share her home. Oh, I found the love to carry more than just my secrets, to carry love, to carry children of our own. We are still kids, but we're so in love, fighting against all odds. I will be alright this time, but darling, just hold my hand, my girl, I'll be your man. I see my future in your eyes, baby. Dancing in the dark with you between my arms, barefoot on the grass, listening to our favorite song. When I saw you in the dress, looking so beautiful, I don't deserve this, darling. You look perfect tonight. Ooh. Rasa sayang, hey, rasa sayang, sayang, hey, hey, lihat nona jauh. Rasa sayang, sayang, hey, rasa sayang, hey, rasa sayang, sayang, hey, hey, lihat nona jauh. Rasa sayang, sayang, hey, that's right, come on. Di mana dia, anak kambing saya, anak kambing saya yang makan daun talas. Di mana dia, buah hati saya, thank you. Buah hati saya bagai telur dikupas. Oh, Jamali-chan, hoi hoi, Jamali-chan, hoi hoi, Jamali-chan, ketipu bayo. Oh, Jamali-chan, hoi hoi, Jamali-chan, hoi hoi, Jamali-chan, ketipu bayo. Di Tanjung Katong, ayamnya biru, di situ tempatnya para cerita. Duduk sekampung, lagi kan rindu, konolah pulangnya jauh di mata. Pulau pandang jauh ke timur, gunung dai bercabang tiga, hancur padang digandung tanah. Budi yang baik dikenang jua. Everybody say, di Tanjung Katong, 옛날 비루 뜻이 두점반야 따라지르다 두독석한 봄에 나기 가는 눈 고놀라보아는 자오리마다 오 참말이 참 호이 호이 참말이 참 호이 호이 참말이 참 그뒤 보봐요.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for attending this evening's event. Please be reminded to keep your masks on throughout the ceremony and to turn your phones to silent during this event. Photography is allowed. However, please refrain from using the flash.
Also, please note that this event will be broadcast on National Arts Council's YouTube channel and Facebook page. Feel free to approach our friendly ushers if you should require any assistance.
In the name of sustainability, this evening's program booklet is available online. Please scan the QR code for access.
The online booklet will also show the names of all award recipients for this evening. Please feel free to browse at your leisure.
Thank you for joining me. Thank you very much. All right. Gonna bring out this next song, something a little bit more Peranakan. We're gonna bring out this song from this local television series called Little Nyonya. So we can do this song called Ruyen from Olivia Ong singing me. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, just a quick announcement. The house is open. We'd like to invite you guys into the auditorium, please. Thank you very much. Once again, the house is open. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to invite you into our lovely auditorium just on the side over here. All right, see you guys inside.也许碎片才能让回忆盛宴，何妨自我拼凑明天。谁带我寻获幸福的梦，却自己迷中困锁。谁为我留下缱绻的天涯？心无石墨晚霞，思念如烟，它飞舞舌尖。若是真爱，被唱几分苦甜。一念婆娑，时间里推磨，追随到何处才结果？眼如针线，在晴空风边，起伏绿后将以泪垂滇。誓言斑驳，情无只是经过，风雨中谁让我应不而挪？香烟在美梦无边，别让回忆误了从前。也许碎片才能让回忆盛宴，何妨此花拼凑明天。谁带我寻获幸福的梦，却自己迷中困
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated as we are about to begin the ceremony for this evening.
May we remind all guests to keep your masks on and to turn your phones to silent during this event.
深深在晴空风边，起伏女后将以泪垂溅，誓言斑驳，轻舞只是经过，风雨中且让我永不日落。Something from Olivier On, that was Rugi. I hope you guys like this one. Something from Little Nyonya. Thank you very much once again. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, the house is open. I'd like to invite you to the auditorium, please.
A very, very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 39th edition of the Patron of the Arts Award.
My name is Kamini Ramachandran.
And I'm Joshua Lim. We are delighted to be your hosts this evening. To start off, we would like to thank our patrons for your invaluable contributions to the arts.
And salutations to all our viewers who are watching us online.
And also all the members of our arts community who are here to celebrate the generosity of our patrons.
We would like to extend a very warm welcome to our guest of honor, Minister for Culture, Community and Youth, and Second Minister for Law, Mr. Edwin Tong.
Chairman of National Arts Council, Ms. Goh Swee Chen.
Permanent Secretary for Ministry for Culture, Community and Youth, Ms. Tan Gi Kiao.
Deputy Secretary, Culture and Sports for Ministry for Culture, Community and Youth, Dr. Lee Tung Jin.
And Chief Executive Officer of National Arts Council, Mrs. Rosa Daniel, thank you for gracing this event with your presence.
Now, Kamini, we are all here because we love the arts, either creating it, consuming it, or supporting it.
Exactly. Since 1983, Patron of the Arts Awards was created as the highest national accolade to celebrate and recognize organizations and individuals who have contributed so significantly towards the development of the arts in Singapore.
Mm-hmm. Through their generous contributions, these patrons of the arts have helped our local arts scene grow, flourish, and thrive.
Today, we are here to celebrate their generosity, kindness, and unwavering support, realizing constellations of infinite possibilities, without whom our art scene would have been lackluster and dim.
Now, presenting to you an original composition written specially for Patron of the Arts, this is a poem by poet Aaron Lee, and on the piano, Rachma Lim. Ladies and gentlemen, Memory of Stars.
It was still light when we reached the water's edge. We turned to see where we had come from. The road went past a cluster of broken buildings. Before us, where the sea was coming in, mangrove branches and some lampposts gestured like dancers' arms. They cast sharp shadows, yet flickered faintly, seeking connection. You wondered aloud how long our walk would take, and whether we could be at the other side by the time it got too dark. I had no answers. And for some reason, that pleased you. I only hoped that we could see the constellations. I did not tell you that not long ago, your mother and I had taken a walk like this. Of that day, only the memory of stars remained. I pointed east, where the sand and debris curved away from us. An earthy smell hung over the water. We stumbled along, talked of nothing in particular, then fell into a silence. Colors drained in the deepening dusk everywhere we looked. When you said that you were scared of the dark, I suggested that we sing. I was saving my strength for when I had to carry you, you who still had hope for the future, enough for both of us. After an hour, the moon rose, always in sight, yet staying just out of reach. The insects buzzed unseen. As to what happened next, time will tell those who come after us. I'm done with looking back, finished with regret. Remember our love. Remember how it willed into existence a dream of 100 moons. and that this fleeting world is no better or worse than the days of our own making.
Memory of Stars reflects Aaron's personal journey and that of the many local art makers during the pandemic. It expresses finding hope and forging ahead, even though there were so many challenges.
The tenacity of artists is aided by the strong support of our patrons that are here tonight. And now we would like to invite on stage our guest of honor, Minister for Culture, Community and Youth, and Second Minister for Law, Mr. Edwin Tong, to give his opening speech. Minister, please.
First of all, let me say that it is such a surreal experience to walk into a hall like this and to see all of you, our friends, our patrons, and our comrades, I think, in the arts ecosystem. Thank you very much for being out here, and it's such a privilege to be able to share this occasion with you in person today. Ms. Goh Swee Chen, Chair, National Arts Council, patrons and supporters, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Very good evening to all of you. So happy to join you this evening at the 39th edition of the Patron of the Arts Awards. At last year's event, if you remember, I spoke online, in person. We were not in person, I spoke online. And I spoke about how the partnership between the arts fraternity, patrons, government, including an annual spend on arts and culture amounting to about $450 million annually since 2013, has been bearing fruit. How arts has been so crucial, essential, and really a cornerstone in anchoring our distinctive Singaporean identity, giving us a sense of who we are, a shared heritage, a shared identity, and a commonality of purpose. That's what the arts can bring us. I also shared about how we were at an inflection point coming into the COVID-19 pandemic. Of course, since then, even 12 months, so much has happened over the last year. So much for us to celebrate and to be grateful for, including, you might know, that in a few days' time, we don't have to be all in a mask like this in this setting. So if this took place a few days later, we would all be able to be without our masks. I'd like to share a few points with you on the arts, as we have seen over the difficult period. You've seen that lovely montage earlier. I'd like to share some of my own reflections on how the arts has progressed over the last year and beyond. First, let me speak a bit about arts philanthropy and the unstinting support from all of you, our patrons. Our longtime patrons like the Keppel Care Foundation, Nyan Kongsi, UOB, UOL, Dr. Stephen Riadi, have remained unwavering and really a strong, steadfast pillar throughout thick and thin. And we had a lot of thin in the last couple of years. We're also seeing very strong support from new patrons. I'd like to thank Sun Venture Private Limited, Mr. Lim Lung Tien, and also Mr. Christopher Chua for your generous contributions to the arts in the last year. I'm very pleased to share that despite the challenging period, cash donations rose by about 18% from 22 million to 26 million in the period 2020, between the period 2020 and 2021. More importantly, the number of patrons receiving the awards this evening has similarly increased by about 22% from 264 to 363. And perhaps also more importantly, 30% of these award winners are first-time recipients. Thanks very much to your contributions, and thanks to these generous donations, the arts sector has been able to continue with the very important mission of inspiring Singaporeans, and as I said, deepening our sense of belonging, our sense of shared heritage, strengthening our commitment to one another. Let me give some examples. Orchard Turn Developments supported Heroes of Our Time, an exhibition jointly organized by the National Healthcare Group and the Singapore Art Society. This exhibition paid tribute to our healthcare and our essential workers at the front line during the pandemic. With the 150 million top-up for the Culture Matching Fund, which we announced earlier this year in the budget, we are very confident that this momentum can be sustained. And the stronger we sustain this momentum, the more sustainable it is, the more long-term arts patronage is, the more our arts ecosystem will benefit from this. Next, you've seen the montage earlier speaking about resilience in a time of COVID-19. I think, no doubt, the artists and everyone associated with the arts sector has demonstrated tremendous resilience, adaptability, tenacity. It's a story of all of that taken together. But I think it's really a story, more importantly, of everyone coming together, working together, making sure that it is not a zero-sum game. It is not a, if you do well and I won't do so well, or if I do well and you won't do well. I think we saw in the last 2.5 years or so, the arts ecosystem, front of house, back of house, everyone on stage, off stage, coming together, give and take, a lot more give than take, I would say, but making sure that the arts flourish in the period. And when we could open up, in the moment we could open up, I think we saw the result. And I think many of you who've been to performances, to exhibitions in the past 6 to 7 months or so, will see that there's such a demand for the arts. And I think it is no surprise that in a difficult time, people turn to the arts for comfort, for solace, and for a sense of rejuvenation. And I think that's what your support has gone towards producing for Singapore. Over the last couple of months, live performances, exhibitions, classes, and events have returned, in some cases with some vengeance, to Singapore. We've been able to do all of this while keeping public health risks manageable. I know we went through a period of time where we had to sit checkerboard, 1 row in between, sometimes 2 rows in between, staggered timings. Some rows could come in, could not leave until other rows left, and so on. Whilst the pandemic is not yet behind us, I hope we have seen the last of such arrangements in such settings. I hope. It has not been an easy 2 years for the sector, but I think you'll all agree with me when I say that this sector as a whole has pulled together, has come together, has weathered this pandemic well, and I think as events come back very quickly, we see Singaporeans coming back to appreciate the arts once again. Our national cultural institutions, such as the Esplanade, National Gallery, Singapore Art Museum, National Museum, and of course also Asian Civilizations Museum, have been able to maintain an exciting lineup of programs. Let me just name a few. We had a very successful run at SIFAS, Singapore International Festival of the Arts 2022, a few months ago. And we look forward to the Singapore Biennale 2022 very soon. Singapore has also remained very active internationally, and I think it is important for us to continue to export our expertise to let the world see what Singapore art is capable of. This year, we had a superb, brilliant show, Pulp 3, at the Venice Biennale. It was something that started in April. It'll run till November. And that was put up by Shubiji Rao and curated by Uta Metabauer. I was there in Venice, and I must say that I swelled with pride when other critics, publications, people who came by our exhibition saw and commented and so favorably about what Singapore could offer. And I think it's something that binds us to arts because it gives us a sense of pride, tells us that when we see a fellow Singaporean succeed on the world stage, we all feel very much associated with it, and I certainly felt so. So this exhibition will come to Singapore in the early part of next year, and I hope all of you have a chance to catch it. In addition, a scan of the main arts groups in Singapore, the recipients of, say, NAC's major company grants, also show that most of them have remained active to a greater or lesser extent to varying degrees. And in the last couple of months, with a lot more activities, and certainly as you look at the calendar from now till the end of the year, I think it's beginning to be looking like a full calendar. In the past few months, I've attended performances and events such as the SNYO concert, SSO's Hans Graf concert, and all of them will sell out. At the same time, it's important for us to ensure that young people feel invested in the arts and that they feel that they have a place and, most importantly, a future in the arts. That's how we can continue to maintain our momentum and grow the arts ecosystem. Just last week, NAC awarded arts scholarship to 8 Singaporeans for studies in a whole diverse range of areas, from the fine arts to arts management to sign language performances in the UK, in the US, in Germany, and also in Singapore. We send them away and we tell them that they are blazing a trail for others who look up and see the path that they have charted and the path they have blazed. And hopefully more will follow in their footsteps. And when they go out, make acquaintances, build networks, come back into Singapore, and use that experience and those networks to benefit our arts ecosystem in Singapore. Many arts groups and freelancers have also taken the opportunity to transform and to adapt and put themselves onto digital platforms. More than 100 transformation projects by over 190 organizations were supported by the Organization Transformation Grant. Self-employed persons and organizations also came together to develop projects supported by the SEP grant, creating over 5,000 work and training opportunities for our self-employed persons. Our self-employed persons are no less important in this ecosystem. Many a time, this loose, creative vibrancy is best achieved if you're not tied to an organization or an institution. And these self-employed persons lend a richness, lend a certain spontaneity to our arts ecosystem. And we had to make sure that we kept them supported throughout the pandemic. I'd like to thank and commend the various arts groups, the practitioners, patrons, government agencies, and also, importantly, the Singapore public, who have supported the arts through these difficult times. On occasions when we could not be here in person, many of them learned also to log in, supported the arts in their own way. Our experience over the past 2 years, difficult as it might be, has been a tremendous learning point. And quite apart from anything else, it's shown us that when we have a common cause and we work together in partnership, we can indeed bring Singapore arts to greater heights. And in fact, I think we've seen little offshoots of that already, even as we begin to emerge from the pandemic over the last couple of months. Looking ahead, this leads me to a discussion on the future direction of the arts. Over the past year, NAC has been hard at work, gathering views, inputs from the arts community on the upcoming SG Arts Plan 2023 to 2027. NAC has engaged some 1,000 stakeholders from our arts community and across the public, private, and people sectors as part of this exercise. I joined one of the engagement sessions last month and met many arts practitioners. Gaurav, I saw him walk in a little earlier, was also present. Emmeline from Objectives were present, and they, amongst others, shared their perspectives, their views, their sense of what would move the needle for us over the next 5 years. And we had a broad range of diverse views from across different art forms. Engagement with the community is, in my view, very important because arts is not something that is done by the government, not done by the public alone, or by the arts community. But I believe strongly, as I hope you do as well, that it is a partnership. And if we don't do it as a partnership, if one side does it on his or their own, then I think it's going to be very discordant. So we see this as a partnership, and that's why engagement with the community, getting views, understanding the trials, tribulations, what works, what doesn't work, and getting on board these different suggestions is very important to us. And that's why NAC has positioned the arts plan as our arts plan. Not an NAC arts plan, not the artist arts plan, but one that is a shared vision. One that also respects the views and backgrounds, art forms, traditions, and indeed, very importantly, the aspirations of a very diverse, broad-ranging arts community. One that is not just created, but over the next 5 years at least, owned, invested in, together with the arts community. Ultimately, an arts plan that can help us move the needle on our arts ecosystem here, move towards a common cause. The arts community has identified a few common themes for the future of the arts, namely, contribution to a creative economy, forging a connected society, and thirdly, building a distinctive city out of Singapore, one that we can say is uniquely our own, something special. And when we go overseas and we export and we bring our products overseas, people can identify with that and say, that's from Singapore. Let me share some of my views on these 3 points. The idea of developing a creative economy is certainly not a new one. In the 2000s, some of you might remember, there were Renaissance city plans that laid the groundwork for arts, culture, and also the creative sector in Singapore. I think it is timely for us now to build on the foundations laid 2 decades ago. And in building on the foundations, I think we have to look at what has worked well for us and what important shifts there have been over the past 2 decades. First, I must say that the arts sector in Singapore is much more established and a lot more confident on their own feet today. One important factor is the sustained commitment by the government in the arts and culture. In the last 10 years alone, at least based on spending as a marker, public spending on the arts and culture has reached a total of $3.56 billion. We now also have a very good mix of art professionals, including established and experienced ones, as well as a whole new generation of creatives in different art forms, experimenting, pushing the envelope, going overseas, taking on new ideas, coming back, nuancing it, blending it with what we have in our local context, and coming up with an art form that's distinctive and, as I said earlier, uniquely our own. Second, societal expectations have shifted, and I think we all see this in the various so-called softer pillars of society. People outside call it the softer pillars. I regard this as the bedrock of our society. Take sports as an example. We've seen lots of societal shifts in sports. Many parents today are increasingly supportive of their children pursuing careers, serious careers in arts, sports, and other creative sectors. It used to be that it's something you go into when you can't get a place in the other STEM, arts, humanities, or something else. But today, it is a destination on its own. It is a choice to be made on its own accord. Schools, corporates, and the general public are also very supportive of this ecosystem. Third, the operating models have changed. The pervasiveness of digital technologies and social media has allowed creatives to reach new audiences, no longer bound by geographical limitations. Digital technologies have made it possible for Singaporean writers to be read or encountered internationally. For example, e-book publishing can reduce the cost of print production, and social media platforms have made it easier for Singaporean writers to showcase their work through other means, such as podcasts, and we see many of our artists on Spotify, for example, on YouTube videos, and so on. In addition, the rise of the freelance economy, coupled with a diverse creative ecosystem in Singapore today, has also supported the rise of the multi-hyphenates. While some may remain of the traditional view that artists and creatives require heavy support from state, public, and society so that they can pursue their craft full-time, many of our artists and creatives today are in fact already successfully juggling multiple pursuits, commercial and non-commercial ones, all at the same time. For us to succeed in building this creative economy, giving it the engine it needs, we must be confident in ourselves and the opportunities to come together to bring the arts ecosystem to a new level, as I said, as a partnership. In addition, we have the establishment of the University of the Arts. We announced this a couple of years ago. MCCY and NAC will work closely with MOE and the economic agencies in the coming years to ensure that the arts will provide meaningful jobs for those who choose to join the arts sector and for those for whom the arts is a source of their livelihoods. And I see the University of the Arts as an important marker, a shift in thinking perhaps, that we are committed to ensuring that we allow and we encourage and we want our young creatives to take their art education to the next level. And we can do that in Singapore. You don't have to go to Berkeley or Goldsmith, but you can do that and achieve it in Singapore. Next, the role of the arts in forging a connected society, I think, cannot be understated. This is particularly important in our country, multicultural, immigrant society like Singapore, where we are at once same, but also so very different. When discussing the role of publicly funded art, that is particularly important. Many have spoken about the potential fault lines in our society, and for that we see many. We are a multicultural, diverse country, and by definition, we will have multi-fault lines. These exist across cultural, ethnic, religious, or even generational ones. Some of these stresses are already present in Singapore society due to our demography and history, while others may be influenced by overseas development, such as culture war in the US. When we see all this developing around the world, and we see the evolution around the world, what then is the role of arts? And in particular, the question we often grapple with in my ministry, what is the role of the local art and local artists for Singapore and Singaporeans? Mr. S. Rajaratnam, Singapore's first culture minister, famously said, and I quote, "Being Singaporean was a matter not of ancestry, but of choice and conviction." And I think that holds true much more today than it ever has been. For Singapore, then, our arts must be something which can help us to build empathy and understanding amongst us through our shared culture, our shared appreciation of the arts, and our lived experiences. It must unite our diverse communities and anchor us to our core Singaporean identity. It must deepen our sense of belonging and fortify our commitment to want to build our home together, to want to be together in Singapore, to build our future together, undergirded by our success in the arts and culture and a strong sense of heritage. At the same time, accessibility to the arts is also very important. We want every person to access high-quality arts experiences at every life stage, and not just high quality when you dress up and come to a place like this or to one of the venues that we have, but how do we bring them out to ensure that everyone in our heartlands, everyone of whatever social background can learn and can have access to enjoy the arts. Third, in building a distinctive city, we hope to create an enduring home for everyone, where public and private spaces are animated through the arts. Beyond funding alone, the government has also been supporting the arts sector through other means, like the provision of space. We understand that spaces are pivotal for artists to experiment, to innovate, to create, try new things, push the boundary. However, there's a need to make the economies work in a land-scarce Singapore in ways that are fair to new artists and groups, as well as also the established practitioners. Ensure that there are financial sustainability as well. As such, the government has been very deliberate in identifying and also developing spaces for artists. One example is 42 Waterloo Street. This revitalized space, similar to the co-working spaces at Goodman Arts Centre and Stamford Arts Centre, allows artists to connect and also network with like-minded practitioners, like-minded peers, and encourage a lot more collaboration. There's also 45 Armenian Street and Kampong Java, two other areas I touched on in my speech. Same speech, rather different speech, but same occasion last year. These are other areas that the government is also working on to develop these new spaces so that our artists, for incubation, for experimental purposes, will find new venues. As part of our SG Arts plan, NAC has been engaging in numerous consultations on how to create even more spaces for the arts in Singapore. For instance, thinking somewhat out of the box and really driven by the fact that we are land scarce in Singapore, NAC has been partnering and parks to develop 3 parks as arts and culture nodes. The Singapore Botanic Gardens, and I'm sure all of us have been there, have seen it, the Jurong Lake Garden, and also Hort Park, offering botanical sketching, musical performances, exhibitions for Singaporeans to stroll in, to experience, and encounter the arts in their everyday life, everyday spaces. To end off, I'd like to reiterate that the arts sector plays a really essential role in forging Singapore's future. And when I say Singapore's future, I think it starts now. It starts with building that identity, fostering a stronger sense of shared experiences, and really identifying with one another as fellow Singaporeans. More than ever, I believe we now need all hands on deck. And as we turn the chapter and work towards a common cause under our new arts plan for 2023 to 27, the arts community and the general public will be invited to share ideas and feedback on the arts plan, contribute to the arts plan so that it can help us shape it, curate it, and also understand evolving and growing needs in Singapore. While NEC is taking the lead to develop the arts sector, it cannot succeed without the continued support from the community and indeed from all of you as our patrons. The implementation and success of the plan will hinge significantly on your continued support and contributions. And for that, I thank you all very deeply and very warmly. As we launch our SG Arts plan and celebrate the 40th anniversary of the Patrons of the Arts Awards next year, I certainly look forward to being able to speak to you at this time next year and look back on another year of developing an even more vibrant, strong, bubbling, forward-looking, energetic arts ecosystem. Thank you very much once again for being out here, for being our patrons, and thank you very much for always believing in our cause, because fundamentally, what we are building in the arts ecosystem is, of course, an appreciation of the arts, the art form, the various art forms. But more fundamental than that, I think we are building the soul of Singapore. We are trying to instill in every Singaporean an appreciation of the arts, because we believe that by so doing, we will instill in them a heart for Singapore, and for them to believe and understand who they are as Singaporeans, relate to one another, relate to the artists and the ecosystem, but more importantly, find in themselves a sense of identity and why Singapore is such a cherished place. And for that, the arts community has done a tremendous job. And I thank all of you for your patronage so that they can continue to do so in the years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minister. That was so uplifting and so encouraging. Thank you so much for your message. Hafiz Hassan is the creator and choreographer of this evening's dance performance titled Nebula. This piece was commissioned at the start of the pandemic and was reworked as a dance film. Hafiz revisited his early days of his Silat training and infused it with his love for contemporary dance.
He also discovered the healing process, or rather the healing of his childhood trauma through the process, and is now sharing the comfort of anger management with his friends and his fellow men through various workshops. So this next piece is choreographed by Hafiz, featuring Kara, Francesca, Shaizman, and Hafiz himself.
Ladies and gentlemen, presenting Nebula.
Thank you. Thank you, Hafiz. And thank you, dancers. Now, Hafiz's journey of creation during the challenging COVID-19 days became a journey of healing, joy, and comfort, not just to Hafiz himself, but also to all of us.
Joshua, had no idea you're such a romantic at heart.
Well, I also bet that you didn't know that one of my favorite constellations is Orion.
Well, you're in luck, and so are you, ladies and gentlemen, because the next performance is by Orion, and it's called Milky Way. This performance is a very special tribute to all the recipients of the Patron of the Arts and Friend of the Arts. You came from different industries and fields, but your magnanimity is unanimous. This benevolence has nourished the local art scene in more ways than one.
Later on the screen, you will see the names of the award recipients for Friend of the Arts and Patron of the Arts. A big thank you to each and every one of you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for Milky Way.
Wow. So that's Milky Way by Orion. Thank you. Now, it really felt like a celebration of different ethnic and modern instruments coming together, intertwining and interacting in different parts along the flow, but all still bringing the water of life.
Had no idea you were a poet too, Joshua. Well, I'm going to give you a very good reason to gush and swoon, because now we have come to that part of the evening, the award ceremony for the Distinguished Patron of the Arts.
Yes, dear award recipients, your generous contributions have ensured that Singaporeans will continue to have souls in their hearts, artists will be able to fuel their passion, and young minds will continue to be nourished and challenged. And we are here to acknowledge that.
So let's welcome back on stage again Minister Edwin Tong to help give out the awards to our Distinguished Patron of the Arts for the year 2022.
Thank you, Minister.
First of our individual recipients for Distinguished Patron of the Arts is, representing Mr. Albert Chew Sin Chuen, is Mr. Jeremy Montero.
Dr. Andreas Teo.
Mr. Christopher Chua Chi Kien.
Representing Estate of Chung Siok Tin, Miss Patrilia Lim.
Miss Go Swee Chen.
Mr. Lim Long Tieng.
Mr. Max Go Wei Siong.
Mr. Pang Lim.
Representing Stephen Riyadi Foundation, Mr. Han Kim Siu.
Mr. Terry Tan and Mr. Haris Zaidi.
Dr. To Chai Soon Charles. And for our organization recipients for Distinguished Patron of the Arts, we have, representing the Nghi An Kong Si President, Mr. James Teo Wee Wee.
Representing UOB, Managing Director, Mr. Jimmy Koh.
Representing UOL Group Limited, Group Chief Executive, Mr. Liam Wee Sin.
A heartfelt thank you to all distinguished patrons of the arts. And thank you to Minister Win Tong for acknowledging their tremendous contributions to the arts. We would also like to thank the following distinguished Patron of the Arts recipients who are unable to be with us physically this evening. They are Mr. Christopher and Mrs. Rosie Ho.
Mr. Danny Yong, Yong Hong Kong Foundation.
Dews of Joy Foundation.
Dr. Finian and Mrs. Fiona Tan,
Mr. and Mrs. Goh Yu Lin,
Mr. Jeremy Lee Chen Seong,
Miss Chris Tan Lei Peng, Chris Foundation,
Mr. Pierre Lorine and Mrs. Bolo Lorine,
Miss Sybil Lau Yi Jen,
Mr. Teo Kian Ang. You are all magnificent benefactors, and we thank you. The entire art scene thanks you. So Joshua, earlier this evening, we heard Orion with Milky Way. Now let's welcome them back on stage to bring us an original composition titled Constellation.
featuring Gildan Chu from Open Score Project on pipa, Rachma Lim, an independent artist on the piano, Niranjan Pandyan from Brahmastra on the flute, Noraini Binti Abbas from Nadi Singapura on Malay percussion, and last but not least, Govind Tan from Flame of the Forest on world music percussion.
This specially curated quintet, they also composed this piece, Constellation. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting to you Constellation.
Thank you, Orion. Thank you. What an ethereal and energetic performance. Now, that new composition of different musical instruments from different cultures colliding and collaborating to give rise to new meanings and new beginnings is just like stars coming together to form shapes and patterns. And this illuminates and gives direction and hope to the lost.
That's so beautiful. But with that, we have come to the end of tonight's ceremony. Please allow me to take this time to once again thank the generous patrons of the arts who are here present tonight with us.
And also a very warm thank you to our guest of honor, Minister Edwin Tong. Thank you. And not forgetting our artists, our performers with such resplendent performances just now. Thank you.
Before we end this evening's program, I'd like to invite all distinguished patron of the arts and patron of the arts recipients to please proceed to level 9 to collect your awards.
And all Friend of the Arts recipients to please proceed to level 10 to collect your awards.
Also, to help us improve future events, we'd like to invite all our distinguished guests to scan the QR code available at the foyer. And for those of you at home watching, please provide your feedback online.
For those of us who are here, please do stay back for refreshments and get to know each other, mingle a little bit, because there's one thing we have in common, and that is we all love the arts.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Bye-bye.